Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to our open conversation. This is the first time that we create an open roundtable. What is different from the other ones? It is that we have conducted a survey before the roundtable to ask to Textworld Evolution Network what they think about the global topic of this exchange. And my questions are based on the answers of the Textworld Evolution Network, meaning buyers from diverse brands, but also suppliers and fashion designers. So we are still waiting for Monica, and as you know, we have some problem with transportation, so we don't know yet if she will be able to join us or not. But if not, we have other amazing speakers among us, and I will ask them to introduce themselves. So the main topic of this panel discussion is turn a fashion business sustainable without compromising competitiveness, which I think it's a very important question for all the industry and its future. So maybe you would like to introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name is Christina, and I'm the founder of Rendre, which is a non-profit with a mission to accelerate circularity. It's Hong Kong-based and with an Asia focus. And I set that non-profit up in 2007. So we've been working since 2007 very, very hard on mainly waste reduction, textile waste reduction, issues, challenges, opportunities, breakthroughs. And more recently, I founded a social impact business called the R Collective, which rescues textile waste from luxury fashion companies. So to summarize, possibly, why I'm sitting here today with yourselves, is because I've been very focused on waste reduction, circularity, in the fashion industry for about 17 years. I've probably got a lot of experience of talking to different stakeholders in that very interesting time of transformation in the fashion industry. So I know a lot about everything, and I'm not really an expert on anything, but I've got a little pocket of experience for the last 17 years on, I think, most topics, yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Christine.
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you for inviting me today. I'm happy to be here. My name is Christine Goulet. I am the founder of an advisory services company that I just started called Sustainable. And with Sustainable, my sort of personal theory of change is that the most impact that I can have is to focus on solutions. So the best products, the best services out there, how can I help investors identify these solutions, channel capital to them? Same for brands. How can they use these solutions and scale them up within their own businesses? And how can I work with the innovators and startups themselves to help support them in their work? I come from a corporate background, so I was a corporate lawyer in venture capital and private equity for a few years. I have an MBA, and I worked for various ethical brands. So I started at Eden Apparel. I don't know if anyone knows this. If you do, then we're going back to like 2005, 2006 here. And that's a company that was founded by Ali Hewson and Bono from U2 to create sustainable employment in sub-Saharan Africa. So helped build a B2B business there. I also worked at INSEAD, which is an MBA program here in France and also Singapore. And I was focused on double and triple bottom line companies, how you manage the trade-off between impact and profit. I worked at the Kering Group, which is a group of luxury houses like Gucci, Saint Laurent, Balenciaga, etc., and also at Pangaea, which is a material science company. So I'm telling you this because my viewpoint is very much, how do we make sustainability work within the business space we're in? How do we build that business case? How do we communicate that business case? So very relevant, hopefully, to the discussion we'll be having today.
Thank you. Olaf, maybe you can introduce yourself too, even if maybe some people know you already.
Possibly. So first of all, I'm very happy to be here to be part of this panel discussion. My name is Olaf Schmidt. I'm Vice President of Messe Frankfurt Exhibition in the headquarter of Messe Frankfurt, and I'm in charge of our textile shows of Messe Frankfurt worldwide. Perhaps you know a little about Messe Frankfurt. It's the largest exhibition company in the world. We have different business units, and one is very important and successful for many, many years. It's a textile business. As you know, the exhibition business, this was not easy for us in the last 2 years. So because of Corona, it was not possible to have shows. But now, as we see here also in Paris with TexWorld, we are back. We are really happy to be back. At the beginning of the year, we had a wonderful show in Frankfurt, Heimtextil. It's the largest show for home and contract textiles. We had the wonderful Neonit show. It's a show for sustainable fashion in Düsseldorf together with our partner Igedo. And also here in Paris, there was a launch of Neonit some weeks ago together with Who Is Next and WSN. Very successful, a very close connection to the fashion community. And in total, with our Texpertise network, we are covering the complete entire value chain of the textile industry. We have shows for fibers, for fabrics, manufacturing, processing, fashion, as I mentioned, and also textile care. From my background, I'm not coming from the exhibition business. I'm coming also from the fabric and weaving part, because I'm from my education. I'm textile engineering and MBA, so I changed the side from an exhibitor to the exhibition organizer. And I think when we see here also this show, it's wonderful to see the people again, because we really miss this for the last 2 years, and now we are looking forward.
Thank you very much. So what I like very much with all of you is that you have very different vision of the wool problem that we are addressing with this panel conversation, NGO, but also industry. And it's true that as soon as we are talking about transition, we always have people who doesn't feel really represented. So it's very important for us to be able to share different visions. So regarding our survey, so the answers are highlighting the matter of the cost of sustainable fashion, which is not a surprise. So one of the participants went further, asking if there is a sustainable possible outcome for fast fashion, while another asks, how do we win financially pressed families of cheap clothing? I think these two questions would be a good start for our conversation, because it crystallized the paradox of the industry. What do you think about this particular issue, the cost?
Could you just repeat the two exact questions that were within that, please?
Yes. So the first one is there a sustainable possible outcome for fast fashion?
Well, we'll pick that one first, shall we?
We're starting with an easy one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to say something quite frustrating to start with, and it's not going to help anyone in the room, but I feel like it needs to be said, which is the ongoing confusion about what actually sustainable fashion is. And as no one seems to be able to agree, define, measure, prove, validate, argue, you can fill in more words if you wish, what sustainable fashion is. I therefore don't really know what your question is, because what we're really talking about. And it's taken me so many years to understand that I don't even understand what sustainable fashion really is anymore. Is that fair enough to say? So the question is so complicated. But that said, let's try and answer it. So assuming that sustainable fashion is something better than mainstream fashion, can fast fashion be sustainable? I would flip it, because I think really to make fast fashion more sustainable, less polluting, it comes down to materials. Please argue big time with me in a moment. I would love to see that obviously the raw materials are more sustainable, which is basically this entire fair. So that's number one. It has to happen. It has to be renewable. It has to be recycled, regenerative. You know that much more than I do. So yes, theoretically, when and if we might get there one day, I will be dead by then, but let's go for it. And the second thing I just wanted to point out about what is sustainable fashion, it's actually a human issue as well. The fact that the fast fashion industry is providing jobs for millions and millions of people who need those jobs. And so it's not as simple as just stop buying clothes. It's not a solution, actually. So to me, the fast fashion industry could be slightly less polluting and even possibly a bit more sustainable if we could deal with the raw materials and continue decent working opportunities for people in emerging markets. I'm really, truly sorry that was probably not a very clear answer because it's such a ridiculously complicated question. Please provide more clarity.
I don't know if I can, because I also agree sustainability, as we know, is sort of an overused term that means everything and nothing. We have other terms like that are coming up. Regenerative is like the new buzzword, and so we have to be careful and understand what we're talking about. What I do think is that each business model, so whether it's fast fashion or companies that are more, brands that are more reliant on leather products or what, you know, luxury or premium, there are hotspots. There are different impact hotspots in each of these different types of segments, and that's where you need to identify where the problems are and address those problems first to have the best return on investment for impact. Or, you know, Textile Exchange says ROI squared. So this ROI, where can you put your resources to make sure you're having the most impact? And so there are certain areas where fast fashion needs to put their resources to make sure they're solving their hotspots. So materials for sure is one of them. And whereas for some brands it will be leather, for fast fashion it will be more synthetics and cotton. For sportswear it will definitely be synthetics. You know, they all have their own issue spotting they have to do in the materials side. And overproduction as well. As we all know, this is kind of, everybody's facing this to a certain extent, but that's one of the main issues where we're still addressing the symptoms and not the problem. Within sustainable innovation, it's been very bookended, so lots of action in raw materials, much less within the supply chain, lots of action at end of life with recycling technologies and business models like resale and everything. So we really need to focus on that middle, those middle tiers, which are hardest for brands because there's no leverage. It's a very transactional relationship. It's harder to make that change. And that's where we can take care of the workers. That's where we can make sure we're producing the right way and not too much. And I'm hoping, and I know there are a lot of people obviously working on these issues all the time, but there are more innovators coming out. There's a change in mindset of brands that it has to be less transactional. It has to be more long-term partnerships in order to make sure they're achieving all these ambitious targets that they've set, all the legislative pressure that's coming in. So I do have a lot of hope that we're at an inflection point in general, and that we will be able to make progress. Will it ever be completely sustainable? And any of this, again, that's a longer philosophical conversation probably. But those are the directions I think we're going in, and the right directions. Yeah, it's just we need to speed them up.
Thank you.
First, I think we have to define what is sustainable fashion. When you ask people on the street, I think you get different answers, especially after the horrible accident in Bangladesh many years ago. People exactly want to know what's happened with the garment which you buy in your shop. And but sustainability is it's really a big issue from material side, the production process, working environment, so many different things. And especially for the production of garments, you see many companies who are looking for really a holistic, sustainable production. But at the end, it's really difficult to have a complete sustainable product. At the end, people buy something because mainly the majority of the end consumer, if they like the garment and the fashion, and not if it's only sustainable, because people go to a shop and say, okay, it's a wonderful product and I would like to have it. And for me, it's fast fashion. It's horrible when you only buy something and wear it one evening and then you put it away. I think that's not a good development, especially for younger people. But nevertheless, when we look to our Neonit show for sustainable fashion, there's a lot of change in the last, I would say, in the last 6 to 7 years, especially in the design and in the style of these companies which they are offering for sustainable fashion. And usually when you don't know it's sustainable, you say it's a wonderful product. You buy it because you like it. It's a good style, and perhaps then you are not really interested in fast fashion any longer. The price is always a big issue for end consumers. I think it's not possible to have a sustainable T-shirt for €5. But when you buy a luxury T-shirt 30, 40, 50 euros, it could be sustainable without question. And you also feel better. You much more feel better when you wear it. And you need a change of behavior of the people. And I think this is transformation in the industry, which is important, but also you have to know something, what is sustainable, and feel like this.
Yes, and so that's why maybe the second question came out, and the person asking how do we help people to evolve in the way that they are more interested in what they are buying instead of the price of what they are buying. But still, it's true that so many people are attracted by the fact that fast fashion is cheaper, but also it allows them to look like someone with different clothes every day. And it's in one direction, we have the fast fashion brands really strong on social network, showing, especially for young people, that they can afford new clothes every day. And on the other side, we have all the discussion about how to change the business models of in our industry. So, in the same direction that you were both underlining, we have another participant stressing that sustainability should be a specific issue instead of a global one, and regretted that we are looking at the big picture instead of addressing it at each stage of the supply chain. And so, in your opinion, what are the most pressing issues that need to be addressed in the supply chain in terms of the impact on the environment? You mentioned the raw materials. Is there any other stage in the value chain that should be prioritarily addressed?
Well, I disagree with whoever wrote the question, if I understood what you were saying correctly, because I think whoever said that said, the point is there is a lot of change happening at every step of the value chain. Wherever you are, there are people innovating, researching in labs, you know, from the best type of paper to package, to reverse logistics, to energy efficiency, to dyes. Like, so therefore, it's happening every step of the way, correct? You're nodding. So if I understood the question, or whoever said that, I would disagree that there is innovation throughout. Obviously, some areas have got more environmental impact, transparency impact, and as you said, you know, the bookending of the raw material or the end of life. So I always think, you know, what's the lowest hanging fruit? We know that the planet's completely messed up. We've all got that, right? We know it's urgent. We know that the movement is way too slow. We've all got that. So what are the low-hanging fruits? Well, the low-hanging fruits, to me, are the places where most of the negativity happens. And we all know it's raw material extraction and fiber processing to fabric. So it's in the generation, again, of everybody, all the exhibitors in this room. That is where the environment, and I'm not saying that negatively, of course, I'm saying that is fact. that's where the carbon, water, greenhouse gas, loss of biodiversity, well, not so much loss of biodiversity, but that's where the negative impact happens. So that's where I think most of the effort should be put, which is finding sustainable raw materials. Now, I'm going to say one more thing, and then you please pick up on this, because there's a fascinating report that Fashion for Good released, I think a couple of years ago, around financing the innovation gap. I don't know if you know that one. And it was really staggering to me. So basically, it's a long report about where's all the money going into investment, into sort of sustainability and circularity. And basically, most investment, we can, if you really want to get into the detail, I can share with you the report later, but most of the capital is flowing, and you know this much more than me, but essentially it's flowing to technology-enabled circularity solutions, which are basically your resale rental platforms. So it's keeping end-of-life clothes, whoop, 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 off they go, yeah, we're all renting and we're buying second-hand, fabulous and pre-loved, yes, I certainly agree with all of that. But the investors are not putting their money where it's most needed from an impact perspective, meaning they're not really putting enough capital into R&D, into scaling up recycling technologies and any sort of business that's dealing with raw materials and recycling. And that is where the environmental gains are to be had. It's a very hard, it's a harder place to put money into, and you're an expert on that. So, I mean, carry on.
Yeah, I might disagree a little bit, Christina, but because I do think the money's flowing more now. Even though we're in a recession, I know a lot of startups who just are closing rounds and they're doing okay, and they're doing hard tech. So what you're talking about is definitely the difference between soft tech and hard tech, soft tech, SaaS platforms, you know, all these business models, and then the hard tech where it takes a lot of R&D, years of R&D. I would also say, I want to say, we're assuming a lot with the new business models. We're assuming a lot with resale and rental that they're better, and we don't really have that much data. So I think we need to be really careful about that. I don't necessarily always think that brands adopting resale or rental strategies have thought through what the impact is they're trying to achieve and are measuring that. In general, people are very bad at measuring impact, and we all have to get better at that before we jump into everything that's, as my former colleague Helen Crowley used to say, don't just go after the bright and shiny. It's not just the bright and shiny. We have to make sure that what we're doing is the right thing. And if you say to someone in the finance department, like, what are the metrics there? I mean, if you're in a call with the sales team or the e-commerce team, they're throwing around acronyms right and left. They know exactly what they're measuring, and everybody's measuring the same thing, and they're tracking it on a weekly basis. And then you say to someone who's putting into place some pilot where they're using better dye or their whatever it is, and you're saying, well, what are you doing to measure that? Oh, no, nothing. We have to measure. We have to think of what are the impact-related KPIs. Why are you doing that? What do you want to achieve? And it has to become second nature. So I do want to flag that this resale rental platform, I don't know how much people are measuring or even understand what to be measuring. And I don't know if we can always rely on the consumer who says, I sold that or I bought that on this resale platform and I'm not going to buy anything else. Because as I was talking with Jean-Baptiste just before, for 20 years, consumers have been saying, we're going to pay more for sustainability. We'll pay 30% more. And, 20 years ago, it was 20% of the population. Now, people are still going out and saying, 80% of the population will pay more for sustainability. But there's a say-do gap. And does that convert into actual purchases? There is actually a new report that McKinsey and Nielsen just came out, which is really exciting because it's showing that, yes, they are purchasing. It is converting. But same with people who say, I bought this on resale, so now I'm not going to buy anything else. Is that really true? And we need more ethnographic data to really track if that's true, and we need to track whether the production of brands is going down, too. So anyway, that's just one, yeah.
But can I just ask you on that? Like, for many people in this room with fabrics, we all know that we need more data, more testing, more certifications, more transparency, more, but it all costs so much money. So it's just really a question because, how can brands and suppliers be expected to keep pouring more into proving that their new chemical X is 20% less than the previous one? Like, it's just a question to that, because it's so prohibitive in terms of the margins. So it's asking so much.
Yeah, and most of it falls on the suppliers. If we're honest, most of it is being pushed onto suppliers, and which isn't fair. So no, there has to be more there, but I think there's a lot of budget that can be shifted from other departments potentially as well. We know that maybe the marketing budget, maybe they have a lot of money, right? Maybe that needs to be channeled into other areas. But I agree that it takes time, and it's costly in terms of human capital. Some of these things that they can measure is, are you using less water? Are your electricity bills lower? I mean, some of it is checking information that is already there, but I agree that in general, especially with all the legislation coming out around traceability and due diligence and declaring more on the loi AGEC here in France, you have to actually declare where things have been made, and it's difficult to find that, and it's costly, and we don't want to just push the burden upstream to our supply chain partners as brands, for example, or as consumers who are asking for the information. So I think that's, you're saying there's work being done at every area. There's work being done, I think, at this area too, to try to figure out what are the right financing mechanisms, how do we spread this risk and spread the burden, so it's not falling just on one of those stakeholders within the value chain. But yeah.
I would like to add one important point. I think, especially in the last 2 years, we have a lot of regulations, legal requirements also on EU level. There is one legal point which has been changed last year in Germany. It's a supply chain act, so that a company have to declare exactly which kind of material they use, where they produce it, and you need a certification. And I think this legal requirements will also support the idea to have more sustainable products in the future. And I think this is also important to see how the industry will change the mind, not only because they would like to be sustainable, no, also the legal requirements will support the idea to be more sustainable. At the end, it's really, of course, it's expensive, you're right. And the end consumer also has to understand which kind of certification will support him to buy the right product. Or you have so many certification in the market. When you ask people on the street, they don't understand exactly how they can select. One certification is important for the material side, other one for the production side, and at the end, nobody understands anything. I think this is, from the legal side, this would be really helpful to have something where end consumer can understand that, because nobody is an expert in production of garments. We can talk about that, but not people who are go to a shop and would like to buy something.
In France, in a few days, we should have a score, like for the food. But they haven't yet decided if it should be later from A to E or a red, color code, but should happen in a few days, hopefully.
And it was difficult to discuss it from the political side, or yes?
Yeah, and yesterday, because it's based on the analyse de cycle de vie, ACV. It's
LCA.
Thank you. So, and those kind of studies, they are not integrated everything. And so there were a lot of discussion about this specific point, because it's not so, it's not included the second-hand impact, neither the impact on the health of the final consumers. So it's not perfect, but it's still a progress. It's big.
But the textile industry, the fashion industry is really a global industry, and also for a producer it's so difficult to declare each part of the production, from the fiber manufacturing, dyeing process, and even also from the recycling side. So I think it's really ambitious to support this idea, but at the end we have to do it, otherwise you don't have a move in the production of fabrics.
Yeah, and this is where I think technology can help us, because there is so much more available on that side. I'm working with a startup here in Paris called Fairly Made, who you might know. So they have a product level traceability. It's a SaaS platform, but there's traceability and impact LCA at product level, and then widgets to communicate out to the client. So there are a lot of innovators doing that kind of stuff. They're doing amazingly well, and it's the legal aspect is a big reason why brands are finally saying we need to do this. So I think that part, not only the SaaS piece and being able to supply this information to who needs it and create more transparency, but also within the supply chain, AI, machine learning. You know, there's another startup I work with called SmartX that can detect fabric defects in circular knitting machines using AI. So the machine learns what all the defects look like, and as soon as it happens, it stops the machine, and it highlights exactly what the problem is, and it sees things that a human eye can't see, because usually in fabric production, you have someone at the end looking at an entire roll, go past a machine with light behind it to see if there are defects. It's after everything has been made and not as precise. So I think this type of technology will be able to help both in information transfer, information collection, as well as helping with sustainability in general and reducing impact.
So I think, sorry, I just want to quickly ask on that, because you see, I can imagine this AI thing, and there's this circular knit going around, and every now and again it finds some mistake that the human eye couldn't catch. And obviously I'm so sure that has lots of fabulous applications. So I think it's great, but it's not like a low-hanging fruit, because that's driving efficiency and probably picking up, obviously, mistakes. And obviously it's technology and it's brilliant, but I just really wonder, like, obviously it's not really going to solve the problems that we have with climate change, because how many extra pieces of failure defects is it catching? I think really what I'm just trying to press upon is that it all sounds so great, but really the problem that we're not really addressing is the huge wastage, is the fact that one dumper truck of textiles is landfilled or incinerated every second. And so sometimes I feel, and it's nothing, you know, me and you, we seem to be disagreeing on this panel today, but it's to challenge really us, not you, to think about why are we not addressing the biggest problems out there.
But it's stopping the fabric as soon as there's a defect made, so there's no waste for that. It's not a whole roll that's created, goes to the dye house, and then they realize there's a defect. So it's definitely addressing the waste problem.
By preventing it. No,
yes.
I see that. I just wonder, you know...
Overproduction. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, I see it's efficiency, and it's, you know, and improving quality of output, etc. So I'm pro that, but I think that, you know, the elephant in the room is obviously consumers overbuying, we're overproducing, there's overstock, there's excess fabric, there's lack of recycling, you know, and we talk about circular economy and everyone, you know, feels good about themselves, but actually there isn't really one. You know, less than 1% of old clothes go back into clothes. It's pathetic, quite honestly, as far as I think of it. So I just think that we can sit here on panels forever, and it's great. I am excited about every step of the supply chain, great things happening, but sometimes I just get frustrated by the fact that whilst we get improvements, we've still got the main problem out there, which is overconsumption and production and waste and lack of recycling, lack of policy. So I suppose it's my frustration speaking about the breadth of our problems being so tremendous and so urgent. And I think where I've got a real bee in my bonnet is just the lack of money that's going into researching recycled technology. And, you know, what we need is a lot of investment into these suppliers who've got recycled yarns out here and fabrics rather. You know, and I think if you got one of you lot who've got recycled fabrics for sale on here, you'd have a very different story about the responsibility that the brands are putting on the suppliers to have all the standards, have all the certificates, use all the best chemicals. Oh, but we're not going to pay for it.
Well, brands have invested. One of the biggest areas where brands are making investment are in the recycling technologies. So Bestseller, for example, has invested in Infinited Fiber, Amber Cycle, and Evernew, I believe. Zalando in Spinova, I want to say. I'm not going to, or Adidas in Spinova. I mean, brands are putting a lot of money into recycling, I have to say. It's the chemical recyclers which have raised more money than almost anywhere else in the value chain. There are some of the raw material players, but they're raising, a couple of them have IPO'd. RenewCell has IPO'd and Spinnova has IPO'd. And they're raising tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions right now. So,
but still, that's not enough. Like 100 billion investment Goldman's did into Recover, yeah. And 100 billion to me sounds like a hell of a lot of money. But from what the report says, it's not really enough to actually truly scale up, to build up more plants. Like 100 million is not actually a lot of money when you're talking at this level. So what I'm saying is, you get excited about the news, but when you pick it apart, it's still not enough.
But you see, especially when you visit trade shows, you see, I would say, a lot of innovations in the sustainable context. So like recycled fibers from PET bottles or pineapple skin, pineapple fibers, but also apple skin. You have cutting technology to reduce the waste for the production of garments, high-tech filtration system to reduce water. I think there are a lot of technologies, and always the companies are showing this. Yes, perhaps it's not a majority at the moment, that's right, but my feeling is, especially companies who are offering this also at trade shows, they get a good feedback from customers and also feedback from the media side. So the people and the companies exactly would like to focusing on a holistic, sustainable transformation process, and this is definitely also a part which I note at our shows and also here at TextWorld. When you go to some companies, I'm sure a lot of can tell you something about sustainability and what they are doing. Perhaps it's not completely sustainable, but there is the way, the right way. The transformation is important.
I agree. I think that's a really important point, because sometimes we want to go from 0 to 100, and we always talk about we can't be perfect and perfection is the enemy of good. But the incremental changes are really important. If you're optimizing, if you're doing if you're taking the steps and doing what you can, that's a good first step. And even if you're looking at innovation management, you can't do 100% radical innovation that's going to change everything. You have to have majority incremental, and then a bit of, 60% incremental and 30% disruptive and 10% radical, because it's so much harder and it will take longer. And we don't have time. And so we do have to, anything we can do, all those incremental steps, low-hanging fruit, it's really important.
But it's also true that as a company, if your investors are asking you to make more profits all the time, it's not enough to just make a good business. You have to grow. And at this stage, this is why I understand that optimization is good to reduce the waste, and we have to finance the solution, innovative solutions, which are tackling efficiently those issues. But since as a company, you always have to grow, to produce more, the problem remains the same. So that's why the financial incentive that you were mentioning before are so important, because as a sustainable company, in this global system, I'm always failing in front of other companies who will be certainly very technology savvy, but they are using it to finally to produce more and sell more all the time.
But sorry, yes. Only one point. I would say there are also some companies who are not increase the production. They increase the price and try to be more sustainable, better products.
That's why I was mentioning the responsibility of the investors.
Yes, and this is also realistic at the moment. It's not. I think also the mood of some companies has changed in this direction. That's my feeling.
Yeah, growth does not mean necessarily produce more. Yeah. Everyone's equating growth with producing more. And this degrowth concept, I'm kind of like, how are you going to go talk to a company and say, hey, degrowth is a good idea? Like, they're not going to think this is a good idea. This is what I'm talking about. Like, you have to speak the language, right, of who you're talking to. You can grow. Resale and business models, that's a new revenue opportunity. and because it's offering something different, but it doesn't mean that hopefully they're not producing more, they're hopefully doing the opposite. So we have to stop thinking of growth is producing more, everybody, and start thinking about creativity and what are the services, what are the different ways of getting something to adding value to your consumer that doesn't necessarily mean more production.
Thank you very much. So we are a bit late on the whole program, but it's normal because we had so many questions to ask you. So maybe because I also would like to hear the audience, and we have 15 minutes remaining. Is it okay for you if I'm asking you to give us your own conclusion on the whole, like on the topic, the main topic? And then if we ask the audience if they have particular questions to ask you. Or maybe you want to answer one of the planned questions.
I can happily try and give a quick summary.
Thank you.
I just have to think about it quickly. But I would actually just say one thing that hasn't been said, which I think, because I'm trying to go back to the title of the panel. And I think the one thing we haven't really discussed is risk management and the cost to competitiveness of not doing it. And I think that is perhaps, if you know the carrot and the stick, you could put a carrot in front of a donkey and it might walk, or you could put a massive stick behind it. And I think we kind of need both. And the stick is to whack it forward by the cost of not doing the right thing and being caught for doing the wrong thing. And I think that is a weapon for change, which is not a very nice one, but it's an expensive one for people who don't do it right. So I just wanted to bring that also, that thought, that it's part of the arsenal of movement. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I completely agree. The incentives are key. I often say the silver bullet to systemic change is aligning incentives, because if you focus on that, people will do it. And it's usually, financial incentives are very powerful. So I'm hopeful, and I've referred to the business case a little bit, but I feel like we have a lot of tools in our toolbox right now to be able to make the business case and show that you don't have to compromise competitiveness by moving in the right direction in terms of sustainability or impact, because there's legislation. So you have to be compliant. There are investors looking at ESG, and you have to report out. And if you want to get future investment, you have to make sure you're responding to your investors. There's consumer demand, where we're finally getting some data showing that the categories which are advertised as sustainable are growing 20% faster than their comparable non-sustainable products sitting next to them. And we have to go and use all of this information when we go talk to the financial department, when we talk to the legal department, and really, speak the language not that we usually speak as sustainability professionals, which is, it's going to reduce our impact and it's the right thing to do and this is what we have to do, but speaking the language of the stakeholder and talking to make sure we're solving their pain points. And because of all of the changes that are happening and so many more people being aware, and like I already said, the legislation and the need to declare your product information, this is the time to really tap into how you can solve those pain points by showing them the right way in terms of impact.
Thank you.
We as exhibition company, we always say we can't make the textile industry more sustainable, but as a global player, we are able to offer the right platform for the industry and to spotlight also the transformation in the textile industry. That's really important. And since 2019, we have very valuable cooperation with United Nations Office for Partnership and the Conscious Fashion and Lifestyle Network to spotlight the 17 Sustainable Development Goals on our shows, and to have a knowledge transfer. I think the knowledge transfer especially is really important, because a lot of people don't know exactly what we mentioned before, what is sustainability and what can we do together to be stronger. So I think that's especially our target, to show what is possible to be more sustainable in the future. And I'm very optimistic, especially in the last 2 to 3 years. We see this, and this will be also the future.
Thank you. Yes, be more transparent as well. Okay, so now so you have a question. Please come and join us so that you will be on the video. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. It was very productive discussion, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It's not working. 1 second, please.
Is it working now?
Yeah, now.
Okay. I thoroughly enjoyed your discussion because sustainability is one of the topics which we are carrying in our Asia region. I'm a supplier, and we are manufacturing of garments that Christine has mentioned, that bestseller, Burberry and kind of Adidas, Nike. According to my viewpoint, sustainability could be seen in 3 different aspects. Number 1, sustainability in people management. Number 2, sustainability in digitalization. Number 3, sustainability in agile manufacturing. So these are the 3 different aspects of sustainability. So I always say to our employees, to our companies, that every happy employee is not an engaged employee. So we have to make them engaged in the organization, that he could be happy, but he could not be engaged with us. So we have to make certain goals, certain objectives where we could be more sustainable towards employees by introducing more diversity, inclusion, and ethical policies.
And does that cost you a lot more?
Yeah, it will cost us more, because in order to be responsible manufacturer, so we have to invest more and more on sustainability, keeping in view the United Nations 2030 vision of sustainability that they have laid down. So my question to Christina is very simple. So what actually these retail world or the brands future expectations with the suppliers, how they could come up to have more sustainable in terms of what value we need to add more to get more and more business from these brands.
Yeah. Can I ask you another quick, before I answer, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Do you feel like you've gotten a return on your investment, that by taking these costly efforts to become more of a responsible supplier and doing what you can, do you feel like you've gotten a return in terms of more customers, brand customers who've come to you?
Yes,
yes,
we are getting
you do. Okay, well, that's good news. So I guess something I would potentially suggest is on the innovation side, I think brands are looking for solutions. And if you can be a supplier that's able to come to them with solutions, whether it be a new type of yarn or fabric or way of producing, as you said, I think, brands are big machines. Startups and innovators are small and scrappy. It's sometimes part of the work that I do is just managing that relationship in between and helping set expectations between the two. And if a brand can work with a trusted supplier that they already have a relationship with that is very credible to them, and the supplier comes and says, look, I have this, I've tested it, it works, and I'd love you to try it, they will be much more comfortable working with you on it than working with a small team on it. So I think that would be an area where I would say, where I see some of the suppliers who really seem to be, you hear their name a lot and, oh, they're really great to work with. It's also the ones that are looking to innovation and trying to be that solution provider to their brand partners.
Great. My second question is, do you suggest that we should have to add sustainable reports on annual basis regarding the emissions that we are generating in our factories, in our companies? So how we are actually participating or putting efforts in order to reduce that emissions. So
Yes.
basically, I have seen that brands have a lot more on the compliance side, that we have to meet the compliance of RAP certifications, of OCOTEX certifications, or kind of things. And these certifications are getting expired after 1 year, 2 years, and then we have to renew it. So why not, I think we should have to work on some sustainability certifications. For example, in Europe, it is going to be made a law that every brand has to produce financial report. Along with financial report, they would have to issue sustainability report as well, I think. So on the other side, in the supplier side, I think such kind of report should be.
I agree. And one thing you touched upon that's really important is a lot of brands now have net zero targets.
Net zero target.
So it means they have to reduce their scope 3 emissions, which is,
exactly.
you know, so as if you can show that you're reducing your emissions, you're moving toward renewable energy, that is really, really huge right now as well. So I think as much as you can collect that data and report back and show those efforts, it's a really important.
Yeah, it will help us, exactly.
Thank you so much,
you very
sir.
much. Thank
We
you very
have
much.
time for one last question. If someone wants to join us to ask specific questions to our speakers. Yes, please come.
Hello, I'm a Chinese student from, and I come here to attend an exhibition with my mom because my mom is a Chinese supplier. And so in my high school, Chinese students are also very aware of the environmental protection problem and climate issue. So actually, I established one environmental protection club in my school, and during our activity, I found a question that we have to put a lot of time and human resources in like promotion. Like we tell students and teachers in our campus to raise awareness of the importance to protect our environment. But during this time, like lots of it's very complicated and it's not efficient. Like, I'm very agree with Miss. You said like there's a doing and a wearing gap here. So how can we try to make people to like actually do some real actions? So this is my question. I don't know if my expression is clear.
It's very clear. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll try to give you a quick answer in my opinion, which is I don't know what your message was to your fellow students, but at Redress we're always trying to inspire positive change in consumers and to inspire people to love their clothes, to wear their clothes for longer, to style them, to buy better, to buy better quality. But most of the time, people can kind of get a bit bored if you're trying to tell them all these things you've got to do. You've got to save the planet. You've got to do this. And people are, and then they just can't be bothered to listen anymore. So really, and I don't fully know the answer to this, but essentially with the way that we communicate to people is what's in it for them. Why should they actually bother? Why should we bother to do these things on an individual level? I think we're all inherently quite selfish as human beings. We're trying to survive. We're trying to earn money. We're trying to feed, put the kids through. So we're all self-serving. So how can we communicate about the planet that is self-serving? And I don't know if you've got an answer because, when you talk about the catastrophes in the world, they're so far away, and climate change. If I go and get a coffee right now, and I chuck the cup away, like I'm contributing, but I can get away with it because I've already got away with it this morning. It did make me feel bad. But getting to the point is that we all have to look at ourselves harshly and make much tougher decisions, and we have to communicate what is in it for everybody else to change when it's a very, very complicated impact. Please, could you further try and explain what I'm getting at?
Well, you did touch upon my favorite thing, which is incentives. How is this going to solve something for them? How is it going to help them? I do think that always works. If you find a way to help somebody solve a problem they're having, it always works. So that's one thing. And I think, you know, it can get frustrating when you're trying to do education and awareness because you're not seeing the action quickly enough. But as you also mentioned, Olaf, it's really important. People don't understand the issues. And I've been doing this for a long time. And still, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this situation. It's very, very complex. So I would also maybe just suggest being patient. What you're doing is still really important. Even if you're not seeing that action now, it's sinking in and it's getting people aware of the issues. And so they will start identifying the problems themselves and seeing it and start identifying some of the solutions because you've already been working with them. So
yeah, we have a lot of short-term consequences, but we have to put that in a long-term perspective. Yeah, this is my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
But also
So
carry on doing what you're doing.
Okay.
So sorry to say that, because it's extremely vital that even though we're saying it's difficult, champion it, and congratulations to you, and to continue to do that to inspire your peers. I would say really well done, because we need more of you.
Yeah, education is really important.
Yeah, it's very good. Well done for doing that, and don't give up, even though it might be challenging, because
Thank you.
the world needs you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we are just on time, and I really want to thank all of you, because I know it was super complicated to address this very global and international question, and I'm very, very happy to have you here to discuss together about this particular subject that we see is really something particularly important for the future of all of us. So thank you so much, and please, if you want to continue the discussion with our speakers, you can do it later, but now we have another panel conversation starting in 15 minutes, so I have to finish this one.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Thanks.